Welcome to the Creative Community Podcast presented by Destination Arete. I'm David.
And I'm Mark, and we're building a community of creatives who work together to achieve creative excellence. And today's guest is graphic designer and our good friend, Scott Fuller.
We asked Scott initially three big questions. First, we asked Scott to tell us what excellent design means to him and how he defines it in his own work. And then secondly, we asked him about risks that he's taken in his career to achieve excellence and success. And I think you'll really appreciate what he has to say there. And then we also asked him about his love for table tennis, and he shared with us things that we had no clue about. Like, we were so surprised. So that part of the conversation is amazing. And I was so excited to learn those things about, excellence, about risk, and then just about like his commitment to even just table tennis as a way to develop his skills and his personality and his discipline.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Scott was super generous with his time in this interview. And so he answered all of our listener questions, which is awesome. So keep sending those in. We really enjoyed hearing his answers, and we can't wait for you to hear his answers because they're really informative, super helpful. So thank you guys for sending in listener questions. And again, keep it up. So without further ado, let's just get into our interview with graphic designer Scott Fuller.
Well, the money was right. I felt that it warranted consideration after I saw the figures. So I was like, you know what? I think I could do this again.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll keep that in mind for next time. I know the price is going to go up, I'm sure you're going to be more of a premium. So, but I went back and listened to our previous conversation, and it was really, really a blessing. And you were so generous with everything you shared, and lots of ideas that I think need to be heard, but aren't being taught in schools necessarily. And so I'm really grateful for that. But we had a question just to get us started here tonight. And it's one we've been wanting to ask you for a while, is what does the phrase excellence in design or an excellent design mean to you? Like, when you hear that phrase, what does that mean for you?
I think it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I think for me, if you can do the job, do it the way it's supposed to be done, accomplish the goal it's supposed to accomplish, and then do it in a memorable way, I think there's an excellence there. I think it goes beyond just the visual design. I think there's also a point of, how you deal with the client, that relationship there, the way you dealt with people, and the way, just the whole back and forth. I think it's all part of that idea of excellence in design. I think people see a lot of, hey, it's in a magazine, so it must be this, or it's in a book and it must be this. Now, I have been in magazines and I've been in books. I'll be in a few more this year, which I'm just blown away by. But I think it's a lot more than just somebody looking at something and thinking, oh, this is pretty, or something like that. I feel like the whole process kind of warrants that idea of excellence. If I do a good job, it needs to be from the start to the finish, not just, hey, here's the final product. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. I try to do, the best that I can on every project. I know that I've had shortcomings. I've made mistakes and stuff like that, but I've learned from them, gotten better. And, I want to keep doing that. And one of my buddies, I just finished working on a new identity for a guy. He's got a basketball truck, and it's got like 2 goals, and he can take them around and like set up in different places, called Courtside Atlanta. And I remember looking in the truck, and on the glove compartment, there was this decal and just said, never graduate. That's kind of, wow. And I'm like, okay, so that's how you say it, but to me, I think that the whole, the excellence thing, I think it's got to be from start to finish. It really does.
Man, that is great. I love that definition of excellence in design. And that's something that you typify, and you've always had an excellence as far as I've known you, an excellence in both your business and your design. And that's something that a lot of designers struggle with. What did you always have that, or was there like a turning point where you were like, which one, or I guess I should ask this. Which one did you think you had first? Like that, which part came first for you? Was it, because both are acquired skills. Was it the excellence in business or the excellence in the design?
Probably design. as an entrepreneur and everything like that. I mean, maybe I have a little bit of affinity for it, but the business part is always something that I'm learning and doing better with. So I think I have more the affinity for design. I was always good with people. I think I always had a real knack for that, but to interlock the business side, the personal side, and then the design side all together, it's something that I'll still be working on for the rest of my life.
Never graduate.
Never graduate.
Yeah. Well, okay. So how do you know, like, when you personally have reached that point with the project, or is it when you get feedback that says you're done, or is it when you say, I think I'm done, or is it when you have like a story to tell? I mean, is there a point in the process, or is it a different point in every, in every brand?
I think the deadline's the ultimate decider. I think the deadline's the ultimate decider. I mean, there's a lifespan to all this stuff, but I think that sometimes you can get going really, really, and this is something that's happened recently to me. I think we can get going and we get so excited, we kind of jump into things maybe a little quicker than we should. And it's not a horrible thing sometimes, but maybe there were a few more people in on the project at the beginning that we didn't quite need there yet. Maybe there was some more in-depth, digging that we really needed to do before we started deciding on things. And then when we took a step back, brought the amount of people down to just me and one other person, and started going back and forth and really digging a little deeper, it happened like that. So I think that I don't know, it's just, and then that's when it hit. It's like, okay, yeah, this is what it needed to be the whole time. And I think there is that moment. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes it's just off a sketch. I mean, I've talked to somebody on the phone and sketched something out, told them about it over the phone, and they were like, yeah, that's exactly what we're doing like that. I've done that multiple times. I've sketched stuff, on napkins and different, things like that. Nothing Citibank-ish, right? Quite yet, no Paula Scher, mastery just yet. But, it's happened, and it's happened more often than you might think, but it happens at different phases, because you might be able to come up with a cool idea or whatever, but can you execute it? It's like when I did, there was a company called Maker Studio here in Atlanta. And I showed her a sketch, the set of sketches that we were going through. I showed her a sketch and I told her my backstory behind it for her logo. And there were tears shed, like in the meeting. It was amazing, but I couldn't execute that particular sketch. But I was able to take a version of that and make it actually into something even better. So nice. You can do direction and stuff like that, but it may not be the end all be all. And it's like, oh, this sounds great. Is this it? Yes, maybe, not sure. And then you got to actually make sure that you can produce it. That's the big thing for me.
That's so cool that you're at that phase of your career where you're tweaking like the little stuff, like you have the big overarching things. I remember, and this is, you can take this as an exaggeration or not, but in the comparison, but I remember watching The Last Dance, and one of Michael Jordan's teammates said, at some point, MJ stopped playing basketball and started winning games. And so I think it's so interesting to see that in an artist's career where you begin to see them transition. You can see it either through their Instagram or just through studying art history, where it's like, oh, right here, they stopped figuring, they kind of figured it out. And now they were on kind of this next tier where they hadn't graduated yet, but they were no longer playing basketball. They were winning games. So that's so cool. That's so cool.
I think as you go in your career, and I'm flattered by any type of comparison to the great one, but I don't know. As you do things, and what do they say, 10,000 hours to like perfect the skill or something like that. I think as you go, things become second nature. Design to me is like, it's like breathing. Now, it's not to say breathing can't be hard sometimes, depending on what you've just gone through, but you start to just kind of breathe it in, breathe it out. And things become automatic. Your mind goes to certain places. That can be a good thing, that can be a bad thing, because you don't want to get so stuck in a rut that you turn into like a one-trick pony or something like that. But as things go along, you're focusing less on what does this tool do, or what does that tool do, or what do I need, or this or that, and you just are able to focus on the problem at hand, and your brain, your eyes, they just kind of take over, and just kind of execute what you want the way you want it. And as you go on in your career, it'll become faster and faster and faster. I mean, I can do, if I had an hour in college versus an hour now, I can do a lot in an hour. I talk with one of my good buddies is John Catino, out of Brooklyn. Phenomenal guy. Love talking baseball with him. One of the nicest guys you will ever meet. I'm actually happy he's a Yankees fan. I'll just say that. But we talked about short deadlines and about how this doesn't scare us anymore. And even John said, you give me 72 hours. He said, I can do some of my best work in 72, give me 72 hours, and he and I are on the same page when it comes to that. I've had 2 days to, when I did that those two Johnny Cupcakes t-shirt, I had 36 hours to do. I had a day and a half to do both of them. And I was on my way that first day. I was at Creative South. I was at a design conference. So it was pretty crazy, but we got it done. I was under the gun. I accepted it. I knew exactly what I had to do and how much time I had to do it, but I took the chance and I accepted it. And, there's been a lot of cool stuff that's come out of that. I gained a friend, Mr. Cupcake himself. And Johnny has just been a fantastic mentor and everything like that. But, it's just, you never know what's going to come out of this stuff. But I think that as you go on in your career, I mean, yeah, you focus and you learn. I'm constantly learning new things, but sooner or later, it kind of starts to integrate itself into your process and everything. Your mind just kind of takes over and you can just create.
That's awesome. Okay. So that leads us into the next question pretty well, which is, what's the biggest risk you've taken in your career up to this point? Well, last time you were on, you told that story that you often tell about taking that poster in to the Atlanta Hawks esports, and instead of taking a portfolio, you just took this poster, right? That's a risk that not a lot of people would be willing to take. And so, is that the biggest risk you've taken, or are there other risks that you could point to and be like, man, I really stepped out on a limb on that one, but it ended up being something that propelled me forward? Because in our opinion, a lot of people have to take at least one risk in order to achieve the next level of success.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I wanted to know from you is like, is there a big risk that you can think in your mind, or is it a bunch of little risks that all added up? What is it?
I mean, I stepped out. I stepped out on my own. My wife and I sat down, we discussed the whole thing, and I did it. 45 minutes after I left my last job, I was officially on my own. I was officially the studio temporary. I started making calls. I called in every single favor that I had earned, over the years. And I called them all in. I was like, hey man, so great to see you. Yeah. Remember that time? Oh yeah. I owe you. It's like, I'm calling it in, man. And I told them what happened. I'm like, I'm calling it in. I'm going out, start my own shop. And I could really use that favor. And the first guy to hire me was Sam Eckersley from Red Design here in Atlanta. I'll never forget that. That was my first meeting and that was my first project as soon as I got out. But that was probably the biggest risk. I mean, it's hard to go from something that's that consistent and everything to what I was doing at that point. I think another risk more recently during the pandemic was, I had done, my icon workshops, my brand identity workshops had always been in person. I had refused to do them virtually. I just refused to because I was like, I need to be there in person. I need to make this a certain type of experience. Well, I had what, 7 appearances, workshops, talks, everything get canceled in the space of about a day, last March. And, things were starting to get tight. Julie's like, have you thought about doing a virtual one? I'm like, I don't know. I just didn't know how I felt. Well, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I made a good bit that first one. I got to keep all the money. I didn't have to split it with anybody. I don't mind splitting, doing the whole percentage thing that I do with certain chapters and everything. I don't mind doing that. That's part of the game. But I got to keep it all. I got to keep everything I made, which was I think was fantastic. But it went really well. So I did another one, and then another one, and then another one. I did probably, I had probably 15 of them last year, if not more.
Wow.
I mean, a lot of these things. And I mean, from chapters over, over on the west, on the West Coast to, I mean, just all over the U.S. was doing them, which was crazy. And then from that, I was able to start teaching at the Miami Ad School, the Portfolio Center here in Atlanta. And then from there, I got a chance to do the biggest workshop I've ever done, which was with Dribbble at the beginning of this year. The only reason I was able to even prep myself for that was because of taking the risk and doing that. Now, I was still able to do it on my terms, which I thought was fantastic. And then now from that, I actually just signed Dribbble as a client.
No way.
I can't.
Are you allowed to tell us that?
Yeah, I can tell you that. I can't
That's
show you
so
anything
cool.
I'm working on. I can't tell you about anything I'm working on, but absolutely I can say that. And I'm thrilled. They're a fantastic group of folks. Incredibly nice, incredibly smart. They're very giving people, and I've, you see the platform, everybody's had, their own bits and what with Dribbble, but when you get to know the people behind something, that's when things start to take on a whole new light, a whole new meaning. And to Michael, Ryan, to to everybody there on the team, and I know I'm missing a lot of people, but just fantastic people. And where did it all start from? It's like, hey, I'm going to do something I've never done before, and then go from there. And I remember, and this just happened today, I had somebody who I did the first workshop that I did through an AIGA chapter during the pandemic. Their president actually recommended me for what could possibly be a massive project today. And she took my icon class. So you never know where this stuff's going to come from. You don't. I'm just, like I've always said, just be available, but take the opportunities that you're given. Sometimes you're going to make those opportunities, but that risk was, can I take what I do and translate it virtually? And I've been able to do so.
That was amazing. That was everything that I wanted you to say, and even more. I was not expecting half of that. That was awesome. I
have a question that I'm curious. And David, do you mind if Scott's like, that's a dumb question, then we can cut it out. But okay. This is maybe a dumb question. When you look back on your career and you look at the risks that you've taken, what's the percentage of that paid off to that was a major flop? Do you have that in your mind, do you think, or?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't look at this failed or that failed. I move on. Mm-hmm. Because if you're going to keep dwelling on this stuff, like, I've seen it so much. People, there's like, oh, this didn't work or that didn't work or something. They dwell on that so much. They're looking so much in their rearview mirror at what this didn't work or that didn't work. And I know there are some things that haven't worked, but I just put them out of my mind. It's mm-hmm. like I learn what I need to learn from them, and then I put it out of my mind.
That's great.
So I think that, I know there's a lot of bit with like mental health and stuff like that a lot of people are dealing with right now, but I think some of that, whatever percentage I can't speak to, but I think that, you know, putting some of that aside, you know, not dwelling on what did go right or did go wrong or something like that, and just kind of moving on to the next thing, you know, I think would be a big help to a lot of folks. But, you know, once again, we're all built different. We all accept things, you know, differently. I know that sometimes criticism or, you know, hey, I messed up or something like that, or I learned something new. I know that can fuel me. You know, people can say something designed to rile me up, and it just makes me, you know, it's like, okay,
it does rile you up. Yeah.
but not in the way that
Right.
that they think.
Right.
Not in the way that they think. You know, I was bullied as a kid. You know, I wasn't as tall as I am now. I wasn't as skinny as I am now, you know, when I was a little kid. And, you know, so I remember what that was like, you know, and I don't talk about it that much, but yeah, you know, it was part of it. But that stuff just fuels the fire. You know, anytime I talk about, you know, the years that I've been doing this or something like that, I always make sure that I give, you know, folks who said those things about me or are still saying things about me, even to this day, that you're doing nothing but making me hungrier and stronger. So thank you. You know, and I still don't care.
Right.
You know, so whoever needs to hear that, you know, there it is.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, I will ask one of our listener questions now. Josh Adkins wants to know.
Okay, no questions from him.
No Josh question. That's what I thought.
You know what?
I tried to warn him.
I tell you what. You know what? I will take just this one time.
Okay.
All right, I'm giving him a shot here. All right, let's have it. Let's have it.
He wants to know: are you ever going to design a script font?
I've actually come closer to that than he thinks. I think that there are some people that are just built to do that type of work. I think that people like me are built to, at the moment, to to mess around with other people's stuff. You know, especially when it comes to script. I mean, I have good handwriting and stuff like that, but it's a weird thought process for me. But something that I'm working on, something I'm getting better at. Ironically, there is a script bit to a massive project that I'm working on right now for the logo type. So I think it came out really well. I've learned a lot. Now, one thing has happened since the last time we talked. There's a foundry out there called Positype. My buddy Neil Summer, who's actually from Atlanta, has started that, been running it for a long, long time, came out with a program called Flourish. 7 type designers from all over the world to come together, to work together, to basically think of it as basically like an apprenticeship for him. And I'm the U.S. representative in that group. I met Neil. This shows you me avoiding doing script actually was one of the things that landed me that job, and I can tell you why, or not job, but this opportunity. So I met Neil back in 2010. At the time, I was running social media for AIGA Atlanta. I'd get to go to all the events for free. I would live tweet the events and do all type of stuff. And I was running all that. I loved it. I got to meet so many people and got to do it for free, minus the parking. And one of the guys that I met was Neil Summer. And this man is unbelievable, insanely talented in a way that I don't know that I'll ever approach, but just a wealth of knowledge. His eye for type is like nothing I've ever seen before. And I've worked with some pretty amazing type designers. That's not to say anything against them. It's incredible. It's incredible to see that. Well, during the workshop, he talks so much about the building blocks of type. Now, me being at one time an engineer, I kind of have an interesting way of building type. I kind of, even he said, like, I build type for the it's like type for the common man. is how he
Nice.
termed it. But during that workshop, everybody's doing all this big swooshes and swirls and everything. And I'm over there trying to create a typeface, like on my big sheet of tracing paper. I'm over there trying to create a typeface. And he's like, do you want to do any swoosh? I'm like, no. What do you think of this? And what do you think of that? And he remembered that, a decade later. And, he'd been paying attention. I didn't realize he was paying attention. So, ironically, from me not drawing a script, I got this incredible opportunity. But that's not to say that might not change down the road. I can't put a timeline to it, unfortunately. But at this point, I'm more confident than ever that at some point it's going to happen.
Nice. All right, Josh, you heard it here.
Yeah.
So go back and stop pestering us. No, I'm just kidding.
All right.
No, Mark, do you have a follow-up or?
No, I was going to say, are we moving into?
I was gonna say Jeff followed us and asked us 3 questions, so I would feel really amiss if we didn't ask you at least one of them, so that Jeff can
ask them all, man. Come on, I got time. I got a little bit of time tonight, so just if you got questions, ask away.
Okay, well, the first one, and you alluded to it a little bit earlier when you were talking about like the moment where sometimes it's a sketch, sometimes it's other times. But he asked if do you start each project with a sketch or does it depend? So maybe what's your thought process behind, for Jeff's sake, what's the thought process behind an initial sketch that leads to more?
I guess you say this. I don't always start every project with a sketch. I started with a phone call. I started with an interview. I started with understanding the client. I understand what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish, the goals of the final design, how it's going to be used, where it's going to be used, who it's going to be used for, what it's going to be used on. That is, if I'm to be completely honest, that's the first thing that starts out with. That's what makes sketching easier. You sketch when you have an idea. I'm not sitting there sketching trying to find ideas. I'm sketching because I have ideas to do that, and you get those ideas by your initial research, by your initial questions, your initial, relationship with the client. That's where all the sketches and stuff comes in. So if I want to be technical, if I want to be completely accurate, sketching is like the second or third thing that I do. But everything that I do before, everything that comes first influences what comes next. Everything. So my initial email or initial call with them will influence how I ask my questions. Questions that I ask will influence my ideas, the direction, which will turn into sketches. And of course, my sketches and my process going through that will influence the final design moving forward. And it's just one building right on top of the other.
Well, another question Jeff had was, it's a little bit of a broad question, and I would kind of like to tune it a little bit. But he said, do you have like a morning routine or anything that you do that gets you started in your work every day? And I kind of wanted to add on to that when you're talking about it, ignoring the people that may not believe in you or may verbally say that they don't think you can do it. That's a decision to choose not to let that affect you. Like that's a conscious choice that someone has to make.
It's
right?
So much of a conscious choice that I hadn't even thought about it for so long until we actually had this conversation. As far as morning routine, I get up in the morning. My wife and I work out. We do that in the morning. I take a shower, get my breakfast and everything, and then I'll go into work. Started with prayer, make my to-do list, kind of plan out my day, and then I just go. I mean, it's not like I have to read through this. It's not like I have to read through a book. It's not like I have to, do this certain thing. I definitely need food in the morning. I don't drink coffee, really. I'm maybe like 1 cup a month, if that, maybe like every other month or something like that. But there's no real, one thing. It's like I get up and I get to do it. That's enough for me. That really and truly is enough for me.
Nice. Awesome. Okay, well, Mark, I'll let you do the honors of asking our third main topic here, because we're taking a risk with this one.
Yeah, we want to turn the topic to table tennis, and we want to hear all about it. We want to hear I think the original phrase of the question was, how do you use table tennis to achieve work-life balance? And then we went back and listened to our first interview with you, and you said there is no such thing as work-life balance. So you've answered that portion of the question, but we just want to hear about table tennis. Like, how does it inspire you?
How'd you get into it?
How'd you get into it?
So I played sports and everything all through high school and everything. I mean, I played baseball for years and years. I played basketball in high school and college. I played street hockey. I played a little bit of soccer and everything when I was a kid. But I just always liked it. Hand-eye coordination was a big thing for me. And everybody had a table. I remember my buddy had a table. We do that. I usually win. I didn't know anything or how to play or anything. It was fun. It was just a lot of fun. I got into college, started, there were some serious players there, and I didn't realize, there was this, was that. So I started picking it up, and I got my first paddle. I remember at the end of my freshman year, learned how to play a little bit. I started going to a club when I was I started going to table tennis club my sophomore year of college, and just had a fantastic time with that. Found a guy there who's a coach. We started working together. It's just, it was just so much fun, something I really enjoyed. I went back home that summer. I played in my first tournament. I caught the eye of one of the guys who ran the Ben Hill Center, which is an athletic center there in Atlanta, just outside of Atlanta in College Park area. And he saw me. He liked my style. It's like, really with very little training. He was like, yeah, I like how you're looking and everything like that. Well, he was fielding a team to the AAU Junior Olympics, and he said, we're like 3 months out. If we pull you in, start you training, doing that type of stuff, playing and everything, then I want you to, Al Presley at the time was our top guy on the team. He said, I want you to play, not just singles and everything, but also doubles and teams with him. And so I did. And I had no clue that we were going to be talking about this. So it's not like I prepped this at all. And I found these the other day. It's got I got to clean them up a little bit. But when I went to the AAU Junior Olympics back in 2004, 2 silver medals.
Wow.
1 in teams, 1 in doubles. It was pretty incredible. I mean, it was a great experience, going to that first tournament. From there, I started traveling more. I started training. I took a year off of college, and I spent pretty much the entire time training. Playing at the time, I had 2 coaches. One of them was Amanda Chai. She used to be on the Chinese national team. I'd go over to her house every Saturday. And then my other coach was Korean, my favorite coach of all time, Kim Bong-gyun. He was former Korean national team, which was unbelievable. He came up with some of the top Korean players at that time. Like went to kindergarten with, like Korea's #1 at the time. I mean, it was insane. But he and I would train 2 to 3 days a week. One of those days was at the Korean Community Center in Duluth, and which was crazy. I was the only person there who was not Korean. I mean, we was a group of about a dozen of us. We all knew each other. We all played. I'd play at the Korean Center Friday nights and Saturday nights, and I would train with Kim on Saturday. One of our training days was on Saturday at the at the community center. And I remember after a good 3 hours of playing and training or whatnot, the players' families would bring in food from like the Korean place right up the road, and we'd all sit down, family meal every Saturday, and eat and just pick and go. I actually became the only American member of the Korean community, of that Korean Community Center in its history, which was pretty crazy. And I've just continued to play. Obviously, you get married, you get a job, you run your own company. Some of that time it needs to be served, put in different places. But I still play, at least 3 days a week, playing a league as well. Still train, still do that. Still keeps me in really, really good shape. And I'm playing better than I've ever played in my life. So I'm pretty happy with that. But we'll it's something I'll keep doing. Keeps my mind fresh, keeps my legs fresh for sure. And just a fantastic workout. Good guys, people that I've known for 15, 20 years, when I started playing as a junior. I still know some of these folks. So it's been a lot of fun, and just something that I'll just kind of continue doing.
Yeah.
Wow, it is a way bigger part of your life than Instagram lets on. Like, that is awesome.
Well, I don't put it up there very often. I mean, like so oftentimes I go in there and I just want to play. It's like every now and again I might have my phone right there and just go, you know what, maybe I should do this or throw this up or something like that. And who knows? Maybe I might do that a little bit more. People seem to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But it's crazy because I remember back when I was playing. I remember for years, this was my schedule, my table tennis schedule for years. I play on Sunday afternoon from, Sunday afternoon from 2 to 5. There was a little club right around the corner from the house. And I'd go out and eat lunch, go to the club, and then church at 6. All right, so that was it. Didn't play Monday. Every Tuesday from 7 to 10. I would play at from 6:30 to 10. I would play at Chastain Park in Atlanta. I would also play league up there. Thursday night and Thursday night I would train with Kim, and then just play a bunch of matches and everything once again for about 3.5 to 4 hours. Friday was 6 to 9, 7 to 10 at the Korean Center. My Saturdays were crazy. So I'd meet Coach Amy, or not Coach Amy. I'm sorry. That's my current coach. Amanda Chai. I'd meet her. We trained from 10 to 12. I'd go have lunch and rest. I'd go to Cohen Park in Atlanta and I'd play from 2 to 6. And then I would leave from there, have dinner, and go to the Korean Center for another training session. And I'd go there from about 7 to 9 or something like that on a Saturday. But that was my, that was my schedule for years.
Man,
That's so cool.
That's awesome. I want like a 3-part documentary series on your time at the Korean Center. Like, seriously, I want that. Like, I want there to be video footage.
It's not even there anymore.
Oh,
like,
no.
It's gone. It's shut down.
Then we definitely need it. Then because
no, I'm not. No, I just, it's not like I went out and won a bunch of tournaments and stuff like that, but it was.
But it's just a cool story. Like, that's so cool.
And it's true. That's the fun part, is it's all true. And that's when I started. I designed that Traject table tennis stuff. I've kind of put that on hold for right now. Honestly, I'm just a little busy at the moment, but that's where that came from. I was like, I saw this gear, and I've used like Butterfly. I've used their paddles, their shoes, some of the apparel and everything, pretty much my entire career. But I never liked their shirts. I never liked a lot of the table tennis apparel that I saw. So I was like, you know what? I just need to make something better. So I did. And then when I wore it, I'd wear it to the club. It was like an extra incentive, because I couldn't get beat wearing my own brand.
Wow.
I couldn't do that.
Nice.
So I still have some of that stuff here, still use it. But yeah, that's, I don't know. I think it's a bigger part of my life than a lot of people realize, obviously than what y'all realized. But yeah.
Well, thanks for being willing to tell us. That's really
cool. It's
awesome.
fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. I'll be there. I'll be at the club on Thursday.
Yeah.
And it'll be good times.
That's awesome.
Well, I may not include this in the episode, but when I was a sophomore in high school, we took a basketball trip for a tournament up to a college in Wisconsin, and we stopped at 2 other colleges along the way, and then a 4th college on the way back. So 4 colleges total. And I'm not the most athletic. We went to 2 colleges, third college for the tournament, fourth college on the way back. So I'm not the most athletic kid. And one of my good friends at the time was like the premier 3-point shooter on the basketball team. And he is pretty much athletic at anything, baseball, basketball, whatever we do, he can do it. And so every college rec room or dorm room basement or anywhere we could find a ping pong table, we would play on this trip. And I played him 14 times on that trip. And the first 13 times I lost. And I would say the first 5 to 6 times I lost by double digits. Mm-hmm. And then the next 4 or 5 times I lost by single digits. And then the last 2 times I lost by, 2-3 points, or we went into, the house rules where you have to win by 2 or whatever. Yeah. And then the last time we played, right before we got on the bus,
you beat him.
I beat him. And I don't view that trip as 14 losses.
No, there's that one win.
I think about all the progress I made along the way and everything I learned about him and how he played and how he would serve and where I needed to be to send it back to him. And I almost feel like I could have beaten him a couple more times after that, because I was now at that point where I had practiced and worked hard to achieve that level. And so I don't play table tennis as religiously as you do, but it is something about taking the time and the discipline. If it's table tennis, if it's design, if it's, your spiritual life, whatever it is that will pay off in the long run. You might not see it that first time. You might not see it that third time.
Yeah. And I had a lot of opportunities to kind of, just kind of do things halfway, with everything that I was going through, at the beginning of my career. Mm-hmm. No, just not possible for me. And I think part of that comes from that. I mean, I remember playing basketball and baseball and street hockey and everything. I remember the hours in the driveway and the hours in the gym and everything like that, perfecting this and getting better. I used to go to the gym an extra time or 2 a week with my coach, and he would basically just drill me into the ground for 2 hours every time. Nobody really saw that, but it showed up. So a lot of, the behind the scenes work, you do the work when nobody's looking so that everybody can see it. It's just, I don't know. I think I messed the quote up royally, but basically I put in the hard work behind the scenes where nobody's watching me. And then, everybody else can see the results.
Right.
It's not pretty. It's not, it's not always great. Usually it's not, but in the end, it pays off. Yeah. And that's what I'm going for. I'm going for the payoff.
Well, anybody who hires a table tennis coach cares about doing things well, no matter what it is. So I believe that about you more than I did before. I believe that already when we started the interview, but I believe that even more now. So really, thanks for sharing that with us. That's really cool insight into just the mindset it takes to be consistent in delivering things that you feel are excellent, putting your best work out there and what it takes.
I want
for
to.
Yeah.
I really want to. All right, what else we got? Keep them coming.
That's all we had prepared. Mark, do you have anything that came to mind while we were talking?
Come on, man. I mean, just it doesn't even have to be a full question. Start something, say something, insult me. I don't know. Just let's keep this thing. Let's keep this thing going. A little bit longer.
I have a question, and you can answer this. I have 2 questions. Are any of the posters behind you yours, or are they all inspiration from other people?
None of these posters are mine.
Okay. Can you tell us the story behind the advertisers think you're stupid, Victor Love? Can you tell us that story?
So Mr. James Victori, if you don't know him, get in the know. Fantastic man, was in the Museum of Modern Art in New York by the time he was in his mid-20s as a poster artist. Incredible. I've long been a fan. And I remember back in 2011, he got on Twitter for the first time. This is back before everybody hated Twitter.
Right.
And he was like, hey, if I get to 5,000 followers on Twitter or something like that, he said, whoever my 5,000 followers, I'll take you out for a drink. Because at the time he was out of Brooklyn, and he just figured, hey, that's, that's probably where everybody's going to be, or more than likely it's going to be in that area. Well, I won. I was follower number 5,000. So I sent him a message, hey, number 5,000. I took a screenshot, just to prove it. And he said, great. So where are you out of? And I said, I'm out of Noonan. And he goes, well, shoot. He says, I can't ship beer. He said, how about posters? He sent me a tube. I still have all of them. He sent me a tube full of 7 posters, including that one that you see up there, and a handwritten note that says, Scott, you rock. And he signed it. Now, here's the best part. Now, this is what I love. On all of these posters that he has, his signature is printed on there, right? He signed next to the printed signature on all the posters.
Oh, man.
So not only did I get 7 posters from him, I got all of them signed physically by him.
Wow.
He would come into town in Atlanta. He came into town 2 more times after this whole thing happened, and I never got a chance to meet. I was out of town every time. And then finally, 2016, I went to the HOW conference, came to Atlanta, and I snuck in with help from my buddies at I'll not
incriminate anyone.
I'll not incriminate anybody here, but what is it? But I snuck in, and the one talk that I snuck into here was his. And I went up to him afterwards. I had my book with me, obviously, and everything. I got to meet him. One of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And I walked up to him and said, hey, and I said, by the way, he knew exactly who I was. Like we met, and he's like, yeah, he's like, Scott, he's like, finally, we get to meet after, however many years. And I said, by the way, I don't have a ticket to this thing. I snuck in here just to see your talk and just to meet you. And he goes, he said some really cool things. But we've kept in touch and everything, but just incredible guy. What we do are 2 completely different things, but his his process, his outlook, just the way he kind of looks at a lot of the stuff influenced so much of my early career. So I've had this poster up in every single studio that I could possibly have it up in for basically the last 10 years.
Nice.
And then the rest of these just I got stuff from my buddy at Durham, Durham brand, or at Durham, out of Covington. Got some House Industries stuff, of course, Oxford Pennant with my buddies over at Brothers. Invisible Creature with their incredible Mars stuff. An original 76 Montreal poster. Plenty of Methane Studio stuff with the Empire State and the DMB shirt. And then my buddy. My buddy Derek Castle out of Tennessee, man, just coming in strong with the Hellcat. And then just tons and tons and tons of other stuff, just in and around and over here and over there and in flat files and everything like that. Well, I like having this type of stuff around.
Yeah, that was a question I actually was going to ask, and then I forgot it before Mark asked his. So I'm glad it came back. But like, who is someone right now that you like? You pull them up occasionally, and like, I think we were on a live maybe last fall, and you were showing a book of somebody, and I wish I would have written that person's name down, but like, you were like, oh, I have this book that I like to look through when I want to think about negative space and that sort of thing. But like, who's somebody that you go to when you're like, I want to tackle this one problem and I want to draw some inspiration? Like, is there anybody working right now, or maybe a historical designer that you like would say, this is someone that I like to draw from,
I mean, my, books by Michael Beyruth are never far from my hand. I love those guys. House Industries, Lance Wyman, Catino, Shemaev and Geismar. I've got some Milton Glaser stuff. I've got books from every era, just all over the place. Stefan Kantchev. Half the people that I have up here, are gone, are dead now, which is kind of crazy. I'm not trying to be morbid, but it's just true. But then at the same time, I'll go and look at something that has nothing to do with design, and I still can kind of get that same kick. I love seeing how people handle certain problems, because I'm not looking to do what they're doing, as far as like, oh, I saw this and I think that'd be cool, I'm going to do it too. I'm looking at their process. I'm looking at how they solve different problems. It's like, oh, that's a way of looking at it that I hadn't thought about before. How can I apply that process to what I do? And I'm sure there's definitely books that are more well worn than others, but but at the same time, like, I love Louise Feely. If you couldn't, in technical terms, my style, her style could not be further from each other. It's not even close. But the level of her type and her intricacy and just the attention to detail and everything is something that I dream about. I'm a humongous Louise Feely fan. I'd say even more than some designers that you might suppose that I'd be a huge fan of.
Mm-hmm.
But anything that she comes out with, I get. Anything possible. I've sent her some messages and we talk back and forth a little bit just online. An incredibly wonderful woman, and just a giant in the industry. And I'm a huge fan. I'm a massive fan. I get inspiration from a lot of different places, and they don't have to look like you or do what you do to inspire you.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Yeah,
that's great.
That's awesome.
All right, we got time for two more. Okay. All right, there's two of you here.
All right,
there's two of you here. So come on, let's do this thing.
Okay.
All right.
Well, along the same lines of what you're talking about, I want to know who your design Mount Rushmore is. You get four. Who's your design Mount Rushmore?
Oh my gosh,
they're going up in stone. They're going up in stone.
I can't answer that. I can't answer that.
Then don't ask me for more questions.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's so crazy. I mean, like, if you want to, I won't say design Mount Rushmore. What I'll say are probably the four designers that have had the biggest impact on my career. Okay. I think it's where I want to go with this. So I would say, what is it? I would say Steph Guy Spuler, for sure. I would say Malcolm Greer. I can literally point to a time in my career when my work took a massive leap upward, and it was after learning about him, getting his book, and having a conversation with him. So that would be Lance Wyman. I mean, probably my all-time favorite designer. I can't, and then I would say, what is it? I would say Paula Scher, I think, is amazing. Her type, I mean, I'll put it right there with Louise Feely. And then there was another illustrator, and I cannot for the life of me remember her name at the moment. And I'm punching myself right now because I could not remember her name. She did a show at the MoMA. Actually, hold on a second. I had that book right here. Luba Lukova, an incredible illustrator. This was it's one of her posters right here, like the eco crime poster. Just the use. It's literally her posters are black and white, and that's it. And it is just. It's incredible. I got a chance. She did a show at the MoMA, and my buddy got me. My buddy got me in to do like a tour, a private tour. It was like me and him and Luba Lukova, and we got to go around and talk about all of her, like a lot of her work and everything like that. We were there for about an hour, and it was absolutely phenomenal. There are a lot more that I could talk about. I remember Debbie Millman, listening to her Design Matters podcast for years and years and years. I would listen to that. I didn't know much about her as a designer. I knew who she worked for, and I knew what she had done, but I looked at her so much more as like she was the interview lady, and she would ask all the questions. that I wanted answers to. You know, it was more than just where did you get your start? Where are you from? Who are your influences? What are big projects that you're working? You know, she would actually ask the questions that I actually cared about. And I listened to her show for, I mean, every single episode that came out. I had them all. I had them all downloaded on my iPhone at the time. I mean, just listened to them constantly. And you know, but once again, or like Chip Kidd, you know, does book cover design. He's a crazy man. Love him. Love his work. He's one of the nicest people ever. I don't know. I can go on and on and on. You know, people that nobody's ever really heard of. You know, but I've got some stuff that they've done. You know, it's my mountain would have to be more of like a mountain range as opposed
I was
to like
gonna
a
say
mountain
we're moving on
Rushmore.
to the back.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I can't look and say here are the top 4 or 5 most influential, but I can say these are some of the ones that have had the biggest influence on my career.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing those. I look forward to looking them up after we get off the phone. So
Malcolm Greer is the guy that you told me about on the live.
Yep.
And I went and like looked up everything I could find and like,
wasn't that amazing?
Yeah. Like his whale at Whale, I can't remember the name, is like Whaling Museum or
it's a New Bedford Whaling Museum.
Yeah, and everything else that he does, like everything, like I can't. There's a website that's like top 8 designs, or even just go to his website, like the Malcolm Greer. Like it's not his anymore.
There's a
but
video.
It's curated, you know.
If you go on Vimeo and just search his name, there's a video on there, and that was I was like 8 minutes long, and that was my introduction to him.
Okay.
And it's just very unassuming. Talks very much like this about corporate identity. I swear that's exactly what he sounds like.
Yeah.
But what would come out of his mouth is just unbelievable. And then what came out of his mind was, I mean, it was unreal. And you know, one of the things that I'm known for is my work in negative space. As far as my designs, my iconography, and everything like that, I can tell you I learned most of it from him.
Yeah. That's so cool. All right, last question. You ready? I'm
yeah,
ready.
come on. Ready? Oh, you're ready. Okay.
I'm ready.
You've had enough of me? All right.
No, I'm ready. I'm ready to ask you this, is what I'm saying. In the next 5 years, the team most likely to win a championship out of Atlanta looks like the Hawks, right? The Braves, the Falcons, you know, whoever. But let's say the Hawks win a championship. Are you designing a t-shirt? Are you designing a hat? Are you designing a poster? What does that look like? I know you don't do a lot of like people necessarily in your designs, but like, do you have like a championship idea? Like, would you do like a slogan? Would you do the city? Like,
I'd probably do something that kind of brought it all together. You know, the Hawks, the city, and everything, because, you know, Atlanta suffered for so many years, man, you know. But I think it'd be something along those lines. You know, and who knows, you know, I may or may not be having some talks with some folks. We'll see.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, but like I said, this is Atlanta, man. We could be up 28-3, and in the Super Bowl, going into the fourth quarter, we can't. I remember my brother going nuts at the end of the third quarter, you know, and my dad and I just saying, "Sit down, not over yet, you know." And then we've had plenty of things like that happen before, and you know, we're apparently getting a nice dose of that with the Braves this year. But it is what it is, you know. We'll appreciate it when it does happen, and it will. I don't know if the Hawks will win it first or if the Braves will. We'll see. All I know is we have a young core. We have a young core for both of them. I'm very, very excited about. And you know, people are taking notice. So
Cool.
We'll go. You know, we'll do what we can, and I'll be right there supporting them.
Awesome.
Before I leave, if you guys, anybody listening wants to follow me, You go to thestudiotemporary.com. If you're on Instagram or Twitter, I'm at Studio Temporary on all of those. And special thanks to David, to Mark, to everybody for having me on here. I very much appreciate it as always. And man, on to round 3.
Once again, we are super grateful to Scott for coming back on the podcast with us again. If you want to hear more from him, you can listen to episode 89 of this podcast, where Scott shares some great advice for young designers and also some really, really cool stories about his career. That was really a highlight episode for David and I back in the day. Like, just when we got to talk to Scott on the phone, hearing those stories that he asked about his career was super just fun and inspiring. So that's a really fun interview if you want to go back and listen to it. And again, that great advice for young designers. So you can follow Scott at The Studio Temporary on Instagram, or go to www.studiotemporary.com on the web. He's got awesome stuff there. You can get merch, you can get awesome stuff. And it's just he's like Scott's design. If you want to just like bask in it and breathe in it, his Instagram and his website are just exquisitely laid out and awesome work. So anyway, visit Scott there.
Yes, and then subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube after you follow Scott for more episodes like this one. And leave us a comment or review with your favorite part of the show. That tells the algorithm that you enjoyed it. And speaking of the algorithm, if you know of someone who would benefit from what Scott had to say in this episode, feel free to share it with them so that they can hear it as well. Speaking of friends that might enjoy it, recently Mark Autumn reached out to us on Instagram just with a simple thank you note. It was just letting us know, as she was expressing her gratitude for our conversation recently with Ellie Wilson in episode 114 of this podcast. And so I wanted to take a minute to say thank you, Autumn, for listening and for letting us know that you're enjoying the show. I've gotten some great feedback from listeners recently, and they've been expressing. I've had 2 people, Mark, say thank you for what you're doing. And so that is a huge boost for me, but also just gives me the confidence to keep making this content because we know it's blessing you guys. So thank you, Autumn, for listening and for letting us know that it was helpful. And hopefully we can continue to do that as we have more interviews like this one.
Yeah. And if you want to connect with us more, you can connect with us on Facebook and Instagram, Destination Arete, Arete, for more interviews like this one. We have a big backlog of great interviews with a lot of artists, and then we have interviews coming out every 2 weeks. So if you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, those places, you can find out about community activities that we may have coming up and upcoming Arete projects, which we are always working on behind the scenes. So we will be back again in 2 weeks with another interview. So we'll see you then.